The Agricultural Revolution. This is a pitchfork. It was used to pitch or throw bundles of wheat or hay, especially at harvest time. Have you ever wondered why schools have such a long summer holiday? Until the coming of modern farm machines, everybody would have to help work to get the harvest in. Even you. All of that started to change first in Georgian Britain, in something we call the Agricultural Revolution. Until Georgian times, farming had carried on in much the same way for a very long time. Each village would usually have 3 big open fields that were divided into smaller strips that were shared among the villagers so that each farmer got a few strips. All the land belonged to the lord of the manor, and the peasant farmers would pay him rent. There would also be some common grazing land and woodland so that everyone could share. People understood that if you grow the same crop each year, the land becomes exhausted. So what was grown had to be changed in a 3-year cycle. Every 3rd year, one big field was left to grow absolutely nothing. Animals grazed on it, and that fertilized the soil with their poo. Families who farmed like this often barely grew enough food to feed themselves. There was not much spare food to sell to feed people who were not farmers, so towns used to be very small. However, the lord of the manor did find something to sell that made him pots of cash: wool. Lords started to enclose the big fields and the common land so that they could graze sheep. This made the landowners very rich, but the poor peasants lost everything. In Georgian times, this process sped up until all of the land was enclosed like this. But then the landowners started to do something really clever. The second Viscount Townshend of Raynham was growing turnips. He loved growing turnips so much that people called him Turnip Townshend. People had found that if you planted crops like turnips and clover, they put the goodness back into the soil and fields, and so they didn't need to be wasted lying fallow once every 3 years. Turnips, as well as being your favourite vegetable, cows love to eat them too. Now farmers had cheap winter feed for cattle, and they could produce more milk, butter and cheese. And more cows meant more lovely poo, which is really good for the soil. Then people started to invent new, clever farm machinery. Seed drills, better ploughs. And because farms were bigger, farmers could afford to buy them. Robert Bakewell and Thomas Coke introduced scientific practices of selective breeding. Farm animals could be bred that were bigger and better. Science had come to the farm, and farmers were keen to share and try the latest ideas. Now British farmers were growing more food than ever before. That meant they had plenty of food to sell to feed the people in the growing towns. It had been a revolution. An agricultural revolution.